Hey, what's going on, Blazer fans? This is Tori, and welcome to a series that I'm starting leading up to the NBA draft, and this is 2K Tuesday. So every Tuesday up until the NBA draft, I'm going to be playing MyLeague. And what I'm going to do in each of these MyLeague episodes is I'm going to go into the offseason and make a couple moves for the Portland Trail Blazers based on a general theme. The theme of this video is the unheralded, underrated type of pickups that Olshey likes to make, and we're going to see what we can do with them. I will have a sign and trade episode. I'll also have a big blockbuster trade episode, probably for Blake Griffin. And I don't know what I'll do with the fourth one yet, but they will all have a theme. This one is the most realistic, the more unheralded players, some guys that I think the Blazers should target. And with every one of these episodes going into the following season with our new team, we're going to set up a rotation and we're going to see how that team performs. I'm going to try and keep all these moves realistic and basically showcase some things that the Portland Trail Blazers could actually consider in real life. Now, all the draft picks are up to date. We're starting in the 2019 offseason, so it's as realistic as you can get, and we're going to head to the NBA draft. Now, I do expect 2K to do some weird stuff in the draft and free agency. We're really not going to worry about it. That's just the way the simulation works. It's not going to be perfect. Let's simulate it to our pick and see who we have available. Alright, so the only players that I see that I don't think have a chance at falling to our pick is Bol as well as Nasir Little. Both of those guys are probably going to go before 16, 17. I don't think they have a chance of falling to our pick. So in terms of guys we could draft, Ty Jerome could replace Curry off the bench as a shooter. Landry Shamet was a great rookie this year for the Sixers and the Clippers. Shamet being a guy who can really shoot the ball. Shamet's already a decent rotation player, but probably won't be that much better. I think Ty Jerome could be the same kind of guy where he's a decent rotation player off the bat, can defend a little bit, can shoot, but probably won't be anything much better than he is his rookie season. But we do need to replace Curry, and if Anthony Simons it doesn't pan out, then it would be nice to have a backup type of guard like Ty Jerome who could probably step in and help us out. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a little bit more of a project, but definitely has some upside. Could be a decent sixth man at some point in his career. Or we could go the center route. If Fernando's there, Gafford's there. Quita would be a reach here, but he has great measurables. Kabengele as well is a active, energetic power forward that can shoot the ball a little bit, rebound, finish inside. I could definitely see us going with Kabengele. Kapala is more of a project, but he's a 6'10" type of wing, type of small forward, power forward, decent athleticism, can kind of shoot, and he has size. And there's a number of guys that we could look at with a 25th overall pick, because Anthony Simons wasn't even on my radar at this point last year. And quick side note, in regards to the draft, I will have some draft profiles and some draft preview videos in June at some point, so stay tuned for that. But we're not going to take anybody with this pick. We are going to make the first move, and this is a move that's one of my favorites going into this offseason. And we can't do it yet because Taurean Prince has a team option for his final year, so we have to wait until free agency. So let's just end up taking Bol. The Hawks took Cam Johnson at 10. Cam Johnson would probably be available around 25 for them, and Bol might be one of their picks at 10. So let's draft Bol and let's simulate to the end of this draft. In actuality, this trade would have to be made after free agency starts because the Atlanta Hawks are going to have to absorb some salary. So in that situation, terms could be agreed upon, and Portland with the 25th pick would draft whoever Atlanta wants. Now, it's not going to be Bol because he would not drop that far, but basically this is the 25th pick and Maurice Harkless for Taurean Prince. But we're not done with this trade. We're going to make it a 3-team deal, and what we're going to do is we're going to acquire another one of my favorite targets for this offseason. That's Kelly Olynyk, because this is a guy who can play power forward, he can play center, he could defend both positions very well. He's a decent passer. If you look at his per 36 minutes, he did have a downtick last year, averaged only 2.8, but the year before he averaged over 4 assists per 36 minutes. He can shoot the 3, 38%, fell down to 35%, but this is a guy who can definitely shoot, and he can score inside a bit. This is a guy who'd be a great fit around Dame and CJ because he could space the floor, pick and pop, pick and short roll, and make the right pass. And he's the type of guy who could make other teams pay for loading up and trapping Dame or CJ. Taurean Prince also kind of fills in that role. The last 2 seasons shot 38.5% from 3 and 39%. This is a guy who's thought to be a defender coming out of college, and he had a decent defensive year his rookie year, but then he fell back to average in the year after that, and then last year he was a poor defender. So hopefully Portland could get this shooting and get him back to the defensive player people thought he was coming out of college and the defender he showed himself to be his rookie season. Now, to make the salaries match, Portland is going to have to give up Gary Trent, and that'll allow him to do this trade. Now, why would Atlanta do this trade? Well, they're probably going to draft a starting small forward with their 8th or 10th pick. Maybe Cameron Reddish falls, maybe DeAndre Hunter falls, maybe Jarrett Culver falls. There's probably going to be a small forward available there for them that they could take. They also might take Romeo Langford at 10, who's also another shooting guard small forward type. So they essentially wouldn't really have a need for Taurean Prince, and he's going into the final year of his deal, and they probably wouldn't want to pay him. They've been rumored to have been looking to trade him in the past year. So if they're able to get an expiring contract with some of the cap space that they probably won't end up using in free agency this year, and they get the 25th pick in the draft, this is something that they might elect to do. Now for Miami, they'd essentially be dumping $11 million in salary by giving up Kelly Olynyk and taking back Gary Trent Jr. Now it says Ryan Anderson is expiring in 2K. He actually has at least $15 million guaranteed next season. And when you look at their salaries, this isn't even a playoff team, and they're going to be paying the luxury tax next year. They also have a lot of big men. If Whiteside comes back, you got Bam Adebayo. In this simulation, they drafted Jackson Hayes, and they could definitely draft a guy like Hayes or Brandon Clark or PJ Washington or another big man. That's 3 big men right there that should be playing. And then you got James Johnson as well, as a guy who's been their starting power forward for the past couple of years. They already have a decent amount of big men, so if they're able to dump a guy like Kelly Olynyk for a young wing project like Gary Trent and save $11 million, which is going to be more when you consider their luxury tax, then they might elect to do that. Now, I'm going to throw in a first-round pick just to entice them a little bit more, and we're going to force these teams to make this trade based off that reasoning. So now Portland has a big man to replace Enes Kanter, and they have a wing to replace Maurice Harkless. The thing is, at this point, they're going to need to try to shed some salary. If they re-sign Rodney Hood for the full mid-level exception, you're looking at $138 million being the hard cap. The mid-level exception is about $9 million, so to re-sign him to that, they'd surpass the hard cap, so that's not something they can do. But now you have that big man shooter to replace Myers Leonard and Kelly Olynyk. So now we can look to trade Leonard, and I think the most realistic way that we could shed Myers Leonard is by going to the Detroit Pistons and taking on the contract of Langston Galloway. Detroit needs a backup big man next year, and one that can shoot and space the floor for Blake Griffin makes a decent amount of sense. They're basically trading one poor contract for another, but that $4 million extra is probably worth swapping Langston Galloway for Myers Leonard. So that's what they're going to elect to do. But I'm going to make this another 3-team trade, but this is as simple as it gets. You're going to go to the Oklahoma City Thunder and take back Patrick Patterson. You're going to swap Langston Galloway over to the Thunder, and that saves Portland another $1.5 million. Now you toss in the 2022 pick going to the Thunder, so they get Galloway and a second-round pick for Patrick Patterson. They've been playing Raymond Felton as their backup guard, so they likely value Langston Galloway as an upgrade over Raymond Felton. And then Portland essentially swaps out Myers Leonard for Patrick Patterson, and they save almost $6 million in total. But what Portland is going to do with Patrick Patterson is they're going to waive and stretch them. And what that'll do is stretch this $5.71 million over 3 years. So you're essentially talking about dead money, which is money that still counts against the cap, but it's only going to be around $2 million. So by trading Myers Leonard down to Patrick Patterson and then waive and stretching him, the Portland Trailblazers save almost $10 million. Now it hasn't registered yet on here, but essentially their salary total is $120 million. So you're talking about $18 million below the hard cap. So now as we go into free agency, Portland is going to be able to offer the full mid-level exception to Rodney Hood. Now, it says we have his bird rights in the game, but that's a mistake. We do not, which is why we have to use our mid-level exception to sign him. The mid-level exception in this game is set to $8.94 million. So we're going to do this. Let's put a team option on the 4th year of that contract. I think that's something we could get in negotiating with Rodney Hood to make the deal a little bit better for us in case he doesn't quite pan out. If he returns to the Cleveland Cavaliers, Rodney Hood, then this could end up being a bad contract. But overall, he's more skilled than Harkless or Turner or even Myers Leonard. This is a guy who's skilled and would probably live up to this contract. And it's probably what we're going to have to give him, so we're going to sign him to it. Now, the final move we're going to make to try and round out this team is to trade for Willy Hernangomez. Now, I think Hernangomez is a really underrated big. If you look at his per 36 minutes, this dude puts up some good stats. Efficient from the field, his true shooting percentage has been above average to good throughout his career. And this is a guy who can also shoot the 3 ball a little bit. He's 36% for his career. And that's on 66 3-point attempts, so he doesn't shoot it much, but he can actually knock them down. And in Portland's system, he might be able to be a 3-point shooter. He's also a decent defender. And I mean, if you can play him minutes and he can live up to these per 36 stats, hit some threes, play some defense, that's a very good pickup. The thing is, Charlotte essentially has 2 big men that they play over him in Cody Zeller and Frank Kaminsky, who will be a restricted free agent, which is why he's not on this list, but they'll probably look to resign him. So Willy Hernangomez could be the odd one out. And what I wouldn't mind Portland doing is actually trading their 2020 first round pick. I would want them to protect it in the top 20 or so and basically swap that over for the Cavaliers' second round pick, which should be in the 30 to 35 range. So you're talking about if Portland is able to repeat the season they had last year, you're talking about moving down 7-8 picks in a draft for a player who could be a very solid pickup and be a rotation player in Willy Hernangomez. You might even be able to get this second round pick as well, so that's what we're going to do in order to land Willy Hernangomez. So now we finally have our front court shaping up. Nurkic is injured, but you have Hernangomez, Collins, Olynyk, and Labissiere, and we're going to re-sign Jake Layman, and he's a guy that can play some small ball 4. Figuring out a realistic contract for Layman is a bit weird. I think what I'm going to elect to do in every season is probably do $5 million a year, and we'll do it flat rate player option. That's what we'll sign him to. He agrees to the offer, and now we have a few roster spots left to fill, but we essentially have our rotation. So we're going to let Kanter walk, we're going to let Aminu walk, and we have 12 players right now. Now I think is the time where we look at some undrafted free agents. And then a lot of these teams drafted these players and didn't sign them for no reason, so we're actually going to need to find a player that could go undrafted. Jalen Noel is one of those guys. He's a decent sized guard, can handle the ball, can play either guard position, can score a little bit, so I wouldn't mind offering him a minimum deal. Now, in terms of a veteran who I really wouldn't mind signing to a minimum contract, a veteran that can actually play, Kyle O'Quinn is one of those guys. He barely played last year, and he's been a guy that throughout his career, for whatever reason, hasn't played much at all. But if you look at his per 36 minutes, this is a dude who's consistently gotten 14 to 15 points a game and 11 to 12 rebounds. Also look at his assist numbers. Last year, 5.4 assists. The year before, 4 assists a game. The 2 years before that, 3.4. So this is another guy that can pass. Another one of those big men that can distribute the ball. So you got Olynyk, and then if you get Kyle O'Quinn, you got some decent passing big men there until Nurkic comes back. He's also a very solid defender. For his career, he's getting about 2.5 blocks per 36 minutes. But given how little he played last year, this is a guy who could possibly be on a minimum contract, and with Portland's reputation, with their culture, I think this is a guy that they could land on a minimum contract to round out their big man rotation. There we go with Kyle O'Quinn. And then we need one more pickup, and let's actually pick up a guy who I've played against before, who's from up here in Vancouver, Washington, played at Washington State. and that is Robert Franks. So we're going to sign him, minimum deal, rookie contract, just to fill out our roster. And here we go, sign these 3 guys, give up those guys, and boom, we have our 15-man roster for the 2019-2020 season. Now, earlier I gave Jake Layman $5 million a year. That actually pushed us slightly over the hard cap, so if he's able to be re-signed for about $3.8 million or less, we'll be able to remain below the hard cap. If not, we may have to let him walk and fill his spot in the rotation with a minimum level player, but he's not really crucial to our lineup, because after accounting for Nurkic's injury, we still have big men that can play in Hernan Gomez, O'Quinn, Olynyk, and Collins, and even Labissiere if he can step it up. We have Prince and Rodney Hood on the wings, have Evan Turner who can still play in the backcourt, Anthony Simons who might get minutes next year behind Dame and CJ. So we have a pretty full rotation without Jake Layman. It would be nice to retain him, but we don't have to. So quick little side note, let's look at some of the free agent moves. Durant to the Clippers makes sense. Kyrie Irving to the Pacers makes absolutely no sense. Cousins to the Lakers, I could see that. So yeah, that's decently realistic other than Kyrie. You had Enes Kanter going to the Chicago Bulls, which could make some sense. He could come off the bench behind Carter and Lauri Markkanen. That seems like a similar situation that he was in with the New York Knicks, but the Bulls might actually be trying to win next year. They went out and acquired Otto Porter Jr., and Kanter could be a good veteran in a young locker room, so I actually like that fit for him. Seth Curry ends up going to the Hawks, so you have Trae Young and Seth Curry in the same backcourt. That's one hell of a shooting backcourt. I think Curry is more likely to go to a contender though, and he will sign somewhere for more than that. And Al-Farouq Aminu ended up going back to the Clippers, the team that drafted him. I can also see that being a possibility if the Clippers strike out on some free agents. So now we're into next season, and what I'm going to do in each one of these videos is I'm going to roll a random number generator between 1 and 100 for a couple different variables. 1 is going to be worst case scenario, 100 is going to be best case scenario. Now one of the variables is going to be player production, so we're going to roll this for every single player. Dame got a 71, so we're going to bump him up a point above where he was before. CJ 63, we're going to keep him the same. Olynyk a 93. Olynyk could thrive in this system. We're just going to bump up his shooting a bit. 93 would mean Olynyk has a career year for us. I think the other thing we got to bump up is his passing. And we're also going to bump up his defense because it's a little underrated in this game. So we're going to bump him up to an 82 overall. Now, Rodney Hood is a 45. We're going to keep him the same. Hernan Gomez is a 70. We're going to bump him up a point. Prince is 46. We're going to keep him the same. So this is probably one of the best case scenarios for Portland. We haven't gotten a low number yet. Collins 45. He's young, so we'll probably get a little bit better. His defense is a bit underrated in this game. So we're going to bump that up. We're also going to bump up his shooting a little bit, bump him up to a 77, which is pretty realistic. Layman is a 3 out of 100, so Layman's going to regress and not be in the rotation next season. O'Quinn is also a 5 out of 100, so maybe for whatever reasons he hasn't been playing in his previous stops, maybe there's actually legit reasons and maybe he doesn't play for us. Evan Turner 76. We're going to bump him up to a 74. Now, Labissiere is a 33, so he's not going to do much. And now this one is one of the most important ones. Anthony Simons is a 53. Now, next year I expect him to be about as good as Evan Turner, so 74. Now, the last thing we have to account for is how long is Jusuf Nurkic out? We rolled a 94, which is close to the best case scenario. So at this point, we're in October. I think best case scenario is he returns at some point in November. So let's do it about 35 days or so. So here we go. Now we need to sort out the rotation, and I'll cut it here and come back with a sorted out rotation. So this is the minutes breakdown for our 9-man rotation. You got Taurean Prince as our starting small forward. Hopefully he can get back to defending well, playing 30 minutes a game. Dame and CJ play their usual 36, 35 minutes. Kelly Olynyk and Zach Collins, Gonzaga Bulldogs, is our starting front court. And I really think Collins will start next year. He deserves a chance. Here you have 3 guys that can shoot the ball, 3 guys that can score a little bit inside, 2 good defenders in the front court. Taurean Prince, like I said, has defensive potential. So I think that complements Dame and CJ really well. Olynyk is a decent enough passer to kind of do some of the things that Nurkic did in the starting lineup. And then you have Hood, Hernangomez, Simons, and Jake Layman. Even if he's struggling, I think he'll have to play a bit. He's essentially playing all his minutes at backup power forward, and I think Simons gets a chance to supplant Evan Turner. Now, if Simons struggles, then I think they go back to Turner, but I think they realize that Simons has more upside, so they play him. So we're going to simulate until Jusuf Nurkic gets back, and then we're going to see how the team is performing. So with Jusuf Nurkic back, we're 11-5, and I don't expect him to return this early, but this is the best case scenario, and it's what the random number generator rolled. So here's the updated rotation. The bench unit has one of Dame and CJ. You got Anthony in there, Rodney Hood, Zach Collins, Willie Hernangomez. That's a pretty solid bench in my opinion. So unless anything drastic happens in terms of injuries, we're going to simulate to the end of the season. Well, as I said, I was only going to stop it if a big injury happened, and Kelly Olynyk has torn his right ACL. So we essentially have to get Olynyk up out of there. Luckily, this happened right before the trade deadline, so what we're going to do is try and trade for somebody to fill his place. So hopefully we can get an Enes Kanter type of acquisition to supplant him in the starting lineup, because we've had a good season. We're 37-15. 2K thinks this lineup is an upgrade. Now, one thing to remember is we are hard capped at 138 million, and we're right up against that. So what's going to make this tough is we can't take back more salary than we're sending out. And with the way our contracts are structured, you're looking at maybe Layman and Labissiere. We can afford to leave that last roster spot open. We only need 14 guys. We'll get a guy back in trade. So they have to be making $6 million or less. Now, we want someone of value. Let's go for Dario Saric, somebody who's actually worth giving up our first round pick for. Now, I forgot we did trade our 2020 first round pick, so let's trade our 2022 first round pick. Let's protect it. Let's also send them Layman. We don't have to trade Labissiere or anybody else. We can remain under the hard cap in this trade. And let's throw in one of our second round picks, and let's make this trade for Dario Saric to replace Kelly Olynyk. One positive about this is it does open up a starting opportunity for Zach Collins, and we finally get to see what Nurkic and Collins look like together in the same front court. So now we have our new rotation. I did try and reduce Simon's minutes a little bit. He's averaging 6 a game, 12 per 36, 4 assists. Okay shooting, not good, but not bad. I could definitely see the stat line from him next season and be a pretty solid stat line. But we did try and reduce his minutes, get Rodney Hood a little bit more. Rodney Hood playing 30 minutes a game, Prince playing 31, Saric playing 23 off the bench. And I still like this lineup heading forward. And I think Saric is a decent replacement for Kelly Olynyk, where whatever happens with this team is probably what would happen with Olynyk. Saric kind of has the same type of play style. We did have the best record in the Western Conference, maybe the entire league. We still only had one All-Star, Damian Lillard, but he's starting. And now hopefully we don't have another injury. We're going to simulate all the way through to the end of the season. Bruh. The replacement for the guy who tears his ACL, tears his Achilles within 2 weeks. So we're just going to cheat a little bit, and we're going to just do this. Hold up. Healthy. Go to game plan, give him all his minutes back, and Dario Saric never tore his Achilles, okay? That never happened. So here we are at the end of the season. We finished with one more win than last year. We finished with 54 wins, which I think is a realistic amount if Nurkic returns in November like he did in the simulation. Giannis MVP, Zion Williamson Rookie of the Year. Cameron Reddish, a rookie, gets 6th Man of the Year. Giannis won MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. Most Improved, Jaylen Brown. And then you got Brett Brown as Coach of the Year. The 76ers won 69 games. Here are the All-NBA teams. Damian Lillard had a true shooting percentage of 70. They always uptick efficiency in 2K though. I wish he could shoot these percentages in real life. A higher 3-point percentage than he's ever had a field goal percentage for. But anyway, here is what we ended up with. Rockets, 1 seed. We got the 2 seed, which if we win 54 games is a possibility. Golden State without Durant had some injuries. They're the 3 seed playing off against the Lakers. OKC and Utah, that's a realistic 4-5 matchup. Denver falls off a cliff. That's the only team that's really missing. And then we're playing Memphis. We win game 1. Memphis has RJ Barrett, Mike Conley, Jaren Jackson Jr. They're playing Dort 30 minutes. And he's actually going off. He brought back Ed Davis, so they don't have a good team at all. Valanciunas, Barrett, and Conley, and Jaren Jackson Jr., that's their core. I couldn't see them making the playoffs. We better not lose to them. All right, we're down 3-2 against the Memphis Grizzlies. So on the road, game 6, and we end up doing what we should have done all season. We win pretty comfortably, so now we're on to game 7. Golden State lost in the first round, so without Durant, LeBron finally takes care of them, and he does it in the West. So Portland is staring at a potential matchup with the Lakers and LeBron. First, they got to take care of Memphis, and right now it's looking pretty good, and they do end up taking care of Memphis. So now we got second round, Houston, OKC, pretty realistic, Portland and the Lakers, and then on the other side you have the Sixers, who won 69 games against the Wizards, who have made a bit of a comeback, and then Milwaukee and Toronto. It's a pretty realistic postseason. Let's see if Portland can take care of LeBron and the Lakers. They split their first 2 games at home. They need to get one on the road now. Lakers win game 3. Portland gets that one on the road. So now you're looking at the same situation we were in the second round this year, except we have 2 games at home. And we blow game 5 at home. So now we end up in the same situation as we did last year. Have to win one on the road and win one at home to advance to the Western Conference Finals. And it's a very close game, and Portland ends up bowing out to LeBron and the Lakers in game 6. They lose in the Western Conference semifinals, so we weren't able to get the Blazers any further than they got last year. So now at this point, simulate the rest of the playoffs. You got OKC and the Lakers, Westbrook versus LeBron, and OKC makes it to the finals, and it looks like they're going to win the finals. They win the finals. They got OKC winning the finals. Russell Westbrook getting MVP while shooting 38% from the field and 24% from 3. So that wraps up this first 2K simulation. Let me know what you guys think about the moves that I made. Let me know what you think the ceiling of that team would be. And let me know if you have any suggestions for these episodes. This is the first one I've ever done, so I'm probably not as good as I could be. So give me advice on how you want to see these videos ran in the future. So anyway, that's all I got for now. Thank you guys all for watching. This has been Tori. I'll see you later. Peace out. Go Blazers.